In this video, I'd like to take a look at the custom product feature in Shopware 6 together with you. Basically, this is a feature that allows your customers to personalize your products. For example, in our guitar store, we could say that the customer can configure their own lettering or logo on the body of their guitar. That would be an example we can go through together in a moment. Now, this is a paid feature in Shopware 6. So if you're working on your local instance and can't use custom products, it's best to go to our community hub and create a free instance as part of the user training, where you can try everything out afterwards. Just to clarify, these are only test instances and not your own environments. That's really important to mention. Otherwise, this whole thing is part of the plans I explained at the beginning of the training. If you have the feature, you can go to Extensions and there you'll find a section called My Extensions. You can click on it, and then you'll see everything right here in the overview. Custom Products is already installed here. It's possible that on the right side you'll see a blue label that says Install. Just click on it once, and then the app or extension will be available in your environment, and you can use it. No further configuration is needed at first, so you can get started right away under Catalogs and then Custom Products. And this brings us straight to the exciting part, the product templates. So how does the whole thing actually work? In our overview here, we can see that nothing is available yet. That's why I'll start by adding a new template. And here, for example, we can say, okay, we want to offer guitar customization, or the option to personalize them. By the way, I'll just enter exactly the same thing here for the display name as well. That's really just so it's displayed to the customer in the front end, while the technical name is for internal use of this template. I'll then set the template itself to active and I'll also add a description. I'm just going to be very uncreative here and simply write the word description so we can recognize it later. Now we could also upload an image and things like that, but that would probably go a bit beyond the scope here, so we'll just move on directly. Here we have the step-by-step mode. This is pretty important, because if we activate it, we can make sure that the customer has to go through each configuration step of their product one by one, and can't, for example, skip any steps or start at step 3 or something like that. Then there's also the self-collapsing mode, or rather the options. That basically just means that as soon as you select an option in your custom products, the other options are hidden. At the very bottom, you also have the option to require the customer to confirm that they have reviewed their configuration. This naturally helps to avoid later issues, for example if the customer made a typo in the inscription for the guitar or something similar. That way you can, prevent mistakes. It's a nice feature for both sides. That's why I'm going to enable it now, so we can take a look at it in the front end later. Now I'll save this template, and afterwards we have the option to add options once the template has been created. That means options that will later be available for our guitar. Now I can just click on Add Option here, since there aren't any yet. And then we can take a look on the right side to see which types are actually available. Here there are checkboxes. We can choose a color selection, a date field, file upload, and so on. So there are all kinds of options. And now, for example, we want to add a lettering, so that would be a simple text field. And now I'll just enter text like that, and then click on Add. So now we can see more options here specifically for the text field. That means I could now say that this field is definitely required. You have to fill this out, dear customer, otherwise you can't place an order. Then I can add a description again. But for now, we'll just leave all that as it is. Of course, it would make sense to do this in a live environment for the customer, so they know what they're supposed to enter there. And then there's also the product number for the option here, which will later be visible in the order summary, as well as placeholder, and so on. Now, there's one more important thing here, namely the minimum and maximum length. Of course, we need at least one character, otherwise no text can be created. And as a maximum, for example, we can say that we can only guarantee an engraving of up to 10 characters in our production. so I'll enter 10 here. Now I could also add surcharges and so on. To do that, I can simply check the box, either for relative or direct, meaning absolute, surcharges. I could also add different tax rates for this option. But we won't do that right now. That would go way too much into detail. Here, of course, you need to look at your individual case to see exactly how you want to offer which options at what price and with which tax rate. The best thing is to just try things out a bit yourself. Afterwards, when I'm satisfied with it, I just click on Apply and then it's already available. But now we're going to add another option, because we also want the customer to be able to upload not just their text, but for example, a logo as well. For that, we could use the image upload feature. And here, I'll just type in your logo and then click on Add. Now, as we can see here again, we need to enter a name. I'll just leave it as it is and also click on Required to make sure this is definitely needed. We can also assign a number here again, and so on. And of course, what's also interesting here is that for a file like this, I could specify the maximum allowed size. A logo can, of course, be high resolution, let's just say, so it can be up to 20 MB, if it's a large file, and that would be fine for us. This also lets you control, to some extent, how much storage can be used by such a request. Here again, we have the option to define surcharges and so on. But as I said, we'll just leave it as it is for now. I'll go ahead and click Apply, and then we've basically got everything set up. And down here, I could also specify that I want things in a certain order. For example, if I want the customer to define the logo first before entering the text, since we're using the step-by-step mode, I could rearrange the positions here and so on. For now, I'll just leave the text first and click Save. Once everything is saved, I have the option to go to Catalogs and then Products to select the product I want. Of course, I can assign this template to multiple products, but for now, let's just use our American Ultra Stratocaster. Then I can click on Specification, scroll all the way down, and there I'll find Custom Products, where I can design a template. And in this case, it would be the one we created earlier. But we can also jump straight to Custom Products here and create a new one, in case we're currently in the product overview itself. After that, I click Save, and then I'd say let's quickly switch to the front end and take a look at the result. In the front end, we now have the option to configure our product. Since this is a variant product, I can even choose the color beforehand. For example, I could say, OK, I want the guitar in red, and now I can choose to configure my product. And now we can already see, OK, this is a step-by-step configurator, because first I'm asked to enter the text. And that's exactly what I'll do now, and only then can I actually click Next. Now I could also add the logo here, and only then do I have the option to place the order. Of course, and as you can see here, I have to confirm that I've double-checked the information I entered above. Now, of course, you can go into the administration yourself and try out some more examples to get a bit more familiar with custom products. Maybe you already have some cases in mind that you want to implement in your own shop later, and you can see if you want to roughly configure them here in the test environment to get an idea of what possibilities this great feature offers you. With that in mind, I'll see you in the next unit. Take care.